I thought my team will join. But I don't know where they are right now. Just because we wanted to discuss the pitch, we're now in the process of creating the pitch. So I don't know if I can speak from the Homa team.
Yeah, we'll
so
try.
maybe...
I mean, it's always good, as I'm saying, for everyone in the team to at least once try pitching, because theory is theory, but when you start practicing, it's always different.
Yeah, no, but we didn't even start. So we plan a meeting that we will start in an hour. Yes, where we will create our pitch. So I don't know if I have any questions yet. Maybe we'll have them tomorrow after we start doing something.
Yeah. Can you tell me about your team? What are you guys doing?
Yes, this is a project named Linguistica. This is a project which aim is to teach languages, but in some interesting manner. So including culture and so on. So not boring way to learn languages.
All right, that's actually interesting, because I was having a discussion with one of my developers, who is also a CEO, because we've had this idea for a long time already to also integrate a bit of the ESL aspect, so English as a second language aspect, into the platform, just because we have people from all over the world coming here, and a lot of them do not have the level of English that you need for certain things. Like when you know, even for writing the pitch, it has to be at some point, well, not perfect, but at least understandable, right? And of course, also the aspect of language comprehension, which is hidden, because we usually only pay attention to language production. So if a person can speak, we think that, okay, their level of English is adequate. But when you actually give them like something to read, I don't know, a document that explains how to fill in an application, and you realize that the level of comprehension is so low that it's impossible for them to understand what is required of them. So we're of course also thinking how to integrate that. And once again, the aspect of motivation and how to not make it boring, as you say, that's one of the biggest ones, I think. If we crack the motivation problem for everything. Yeah, I'm still in the mode after checking homework of one of the other teams, and there it's exercising and motivation. So I'm still on that subject, because it's a very complicated topic, of course. Yeah, like does motivation have to be intrinsic, or does it actually have to be connected to something that we're getting out of it? I don't know. Like, do you want to earn new skills just because you want to grow as a person, or do you want to have new skills because you might, have a bigger salary at some point, or is both okay, or which one is better? Yeah. And languages is also a thing that I like, because I'm a linguist as well, so kind of topic that interests me. But yeah, for you, immediately, once you do the pitch, immediately one of the first questions that at least I will have, and all the others, in a world that is so oversaturated with propositions that promise that you're going to learn a language, how are you going to distinguish yourself? Yeah, you have to be really concentrated on figuring this part out, because your competition is massive. The attention span of people is decreasing, competition is increasing. Anything that has to do with AI is also booming. So, in a few years, we will actually be able to hold the phone and not even speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
And yet,
in some online dictionaries or so on. So,
yeah, and still, it's such a big problem. Like, even in our company, we have a few developers that speak the English at the level of developers, so they can type. But once they have to speak or comprehend, then of course everything goes horribly wrong, because there's misunderstanding. So yeah, a massive problem to solve. And let's hope that you manage to have the value proposition that immediately makes you stand out from everyone else who's doing that. Does anyone actually want to practice the pitching today or not? Or do we just go with questions, the usual thing? Daisy, Karen, no pitching?
No, actually, I didn't have time to speak to Sheku. We have a time difference, so it's kind of we need to get in time together to discuss it. No, we haven't prepared it yet. I just came in to see if, how to go about it properly and see maybe there was a mentor or someone here. So because then you need to start looking for a mentor as well, no?
Yes, of course. I mean, there will be a workshop that Liz will do again. I think it's tomorrow at 5. So yeah, she's the one who can also tell you a few more things about pitching. But yeah, I mean, if we can answer I can answer some of the questions that you have now, and then we can maybe go through a typical pitching process or creation of a pitch deck presentation if you want. And also, you already found the template that we created for you for the game. We created a simplified one, just because the typical one would ask you questions that you cannot answer now. So things like, hey, how much money are you going to need for the next round, and how much are you willing to give away? So these are the things that are not interesting at the moment. But the idea is to put you in the mindset in which you start thinking about these things. I'm checking homework for the first modules, and 99% of the people are making the same mistake when they answer the question, what would an investor want from me? Everyone is saying, yeah, because we have that and that and that, but the investors don't think that way. The investors think from the money perspective. Someone gives them money that they need to invest properly so that they can get a lot more money back. From that point of view, they don't care how cute you are, how wonderful the problem and the solution that you're solving. If they don't smell that there's a lot of money coming out of you, they won't talk to you because the risk is too high. So your task is not to tell them how wonderful the world is going to be when with your solution in it. Your task is to tell them, hey, by investing this amount of money in X amount of years, you're going to get X amount of money back. And then you extrapolate on that sentence by telling the investor how you're going to do this. And at that point, it doesn't have to be true, because honestly, like, things will happen along the way and everything will change. But you have to tell them that A, you have already thought about this, and B, you have like this common sense and logic in realizing how you can go from 0 customers to 10 to 100 to 1,000. So, and that of course is one of the most important parts of your pitch, where you have to convince that if someone comes with and they invest money into your company, then you're going to give them a lot of money back. So it's a bit of this, let's say a mathematical approach. On the other hand, of course, the investors, they also have to relate to you as the founder. So if they don't believe in you, then, and if the numbers don't make sense, then the answer is going to be no. No, the answer is going to be just, they just don't respond. So they're just going to ghost you. The legal guy is here. So if anyone has questions to the legal guy, we can do that as well.
I saw the pitching from Liz, the recording, the other one, because I missed it. It was very good. She explained a lot of things, even in the short time. And I was going to base the pitching on that those steps? Is that enough, or should I follow the next one from Liz as well before doing the pitch?
No, you can start with this one. You can start with anything you want, because believe me, you will have to redo your pitch if you continue with the startup journey a gazillion of times. This is going to be like a full-time job. Redoing the pitch version over version over version, non-stop until you are absolutely fed up with it, and then you have to do it a bit more.
Yeah. You always need to have a clear idea of your product in your head and keep it simple, basically.
It's also trying to satisfy different groups of people. So you cannot have the same pitch that will satisfy your future customers or the investors or, I don't know, the government, because the government will ask you things that you will think to yourself, like, why are you asking me for an 8-year cash flow prognosis when I don't even have my MVP yet? And yet this is a true story, right? They do these things.
Yes.
You have to put on your Zen cap and just, come up with numbers out of thin air, numbers that will make them happy, because and they know that those numbers are fake, because you cannot predict that, you don't have a freaking crystal ball to do this. Impossible. And yet they ask that. So
what if the investor asks you for a number now and you just come up with a number, right? And then he gives you the money, he comes into the business and has a share and expects you to give back that number. Then you're kind of...
No, I should have done due diligence.
Who? Right, me
the
or
investor?
The investor?
The investor, but they will do due diligence. So if you are saying something that's absolutely not true, you will have a problem because they will find that out. But they don't just go on
your
appearance like, okay, well.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I was saying that if you don't, if the investor doesn't trust you, then they will not invest, because they need to know that everything that you say makes sense to them. And of course, if you try to tell them that, hey, in 2 years, I'm going to have, 5 million of profit, whereas your market is only Malta, they're probably going to say, nah, this doesn't make sense at all, right? And if you don't have a number to a question that an investor asks, well, you make sure that you do your research, and for the next investor, you have that number, because you're not going to get an investment from the first investor that you see. You're going to have, it's a long process. You're going to be talking to people. You're going to be learning by talking to them. So make sure that you write down all the questions that they ask, and make sure that for the next time, that you have the answers to those questions. And sometimes it's going to be frustrating. Sometimes I remember I had to pitch to, say, for example, 3 different people in a period of 1 week. So I would pitch to the first one, then I would amend my pitch to make sure that I incorporated everything that this person wanted. I would pitch to the second one. The second one would tell me to do the opposite, and then the third one will tell me to do something else. And I'd be like, oh, come on, give me a freaking break. I don't want to do this anymore. So you're at this point when you can't satisfy everyone. So you have to, at some point, maybe stand your ground and say, okay, this is the kind of investor that I want. So don't only look at it from the perspective that they're choosing you. You are choosing them as well. It's a relationship. It's a two-way street. You don't want to marry the first guy that offers you money, right? You kind of also want to like the guy, at least a little bit, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person.
A bit.
So if you don't feel comfortable with someone at the first meeting because they're already, asking you weird questions or treating you like they don't believe in you, whatever, maybe it's not a good investor for you. Because not having an investor sometimes may be better than having a bad one. Because as you said, if you decide on something and then things go wrong, and then like pandemic happens or whatever happens, right? But the investor still expects you to deliver, and they're gonna try to ride you as hard as possible because they already put money into you, and they will, they have to do anything they can to get that money back and more. So at this moment, they don't care about you; they care about the money that they put into you. it's tough to hear these things, and some investors might even say that no, that's not true. But in reality, it is true, because it's not their money that they're investing in many cases, right? It's the money that someone else gave them. So as hard as the investor is going to write you, someone else is going to write that investor. So it's always this pecking order, and and someone has to get that money, to bring that money back. And in the end, it's going to be the startup founder. So that's why, like, from our personal experience, we haven't done any equity investment with our legal tech company, the first one, at all. First of all, we weren't ready at some point, and second of all, we thought that none of the founders would feel comfortable if we just did this for the money. So we are actually looking for a different approach to that now. We're looking for to be funded by the Dutch government, because that's a good possibility for us, because they've already invested before and they're willing to do more. But we need to have the second part of that investment covered by someone else, and that someone else would rather this be a company, so a manufacturing company in our case, and not an investor. Which they're still an investor, but they would invest for a totally different reason, because we would create something that they would actually be using, right? So it's a different way. They would still make money off us, but in a totally different perspective. So it's something, of course, that we didn't know when we just got started. This realization came to us.
You develop as you grow up, as you grow along.
Yes,
Yeah.
the more experience you get, the more different opinions you hear, the more people you talk to, the more investors you talk to. But definitely never say no to talking to an investor in the beginning. It's always a learning exercise.
Okay.
But don't expect that an investor wants to talk to me, I'm gonna get funded. No, the chances are you won't, but you will definitely have this learning experience when you will A, practice your pitching, B, figure out how to answer tough questions on the spot, and C, hopefully perfect your pitch, because those questions will actually make sense and you will integrate them into the pitch. So eventually getting a bit better and better and better at that.
Okay. Well, I have never pitched a product, my own product or something. But as you were saying, now I was thinking way back when I was working at a bank, I used to be a financial advisor and had to sell the insurances, the pension plans, and blah, 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 all that. So as you said, the first time a product came out, you wouldn't know the ins and outs of the product. So you start looking at the menu. But as you kind of see the 20th, 30th client that you're explaining it to, or investing it in it yourself, you're pitching kind of, because now I'm thinking that is kind of pitching, right? Would get easier and more reliable, more relatable, right? Relatable.
Of course, yes. With
So
experience,
the client in front of you. So at first I was thinking, I don't know what pitching is, but now I realize I've done a lot of pitching. I just never called it pitching, basically. So, yeah, okay.
a fancy word that everyone's using, but in general, it's presenting something to people in a way that interests them and engages them, and you get them to respond to the call of action that you have. It's being able to present yourself as well. So, like, how many of you can now on the spot talk about yourself for 3 minutes in a way that I will say, wow, great, awesome, I want to do something with that person? Probably not many on the spot, right? But if you actually prepare, and then if you practice and try, then you will have time to say, to remember, okay, I did this, maybe I should mention that and that. But your first time is probably going to be full of a lot of well, I don't know what to say. Well, I'm looking at DJ now and kind of thinking about his experience as well. I have to train him a bit how to present himself, because he has a lot of experience, but when he starts talking about himself, like, he forgets half of the stuff. But then, of course, it gets better and better when you do it several times. Then it becomes automatic. I don't know, Karen, if you want, I know that you.
No,
No, I'm enjoying what you're saying. I was laughing. It's fun.
No, I was,
You know what I really enjoyed is that I think it's in the first homework where you did your first pitch and you did your second pitch. It was really hilarious, though. Yeah, it's a nice way. It's like my first TikTok video. I look at myself and I think, oh my God, I look so terrible. I look so nervous. So hopefully the next one will be better. But anyway.
yeah, as they say, if you look at something that you've done 6 months ago and you don't feel horrified, then you haven't progressed.
That's a nice way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Mama praat net gou hierso. Sorry, I have like my 3-year-old in the back.
I was thinking, Karen, because you're in a situation that's quite different from the others, you want to do a non-profit, and then of course you have to talk to different people for money. Even if they are investors, then you still have to, of course, push different buttons. So because for them, it's different things that they want to be achieving. So if you maybe want to discuss that, I don't know.
Yes, so my project is like a real life project. The website is going up the end of the month. So I actually spend the entire day working out 3 paragraphs describing the project in 3 paragraphs. But what I realized, and it's only sort of, I did mention it to you the other night, it's sort of only filtering into my consciousness now, is that there's a negative tone towards in my talking that I just didn't hear it. But it is because I've spent 10 years in Parliament as an opposition MP. So I would use words like unemployment and inequality, whereas I could rather say, there's lots of aspirational and aspiring South Africans that I can just flip it. But so what I did is I was trying to take out every word that had a negative connotation to it, even if it's a fact, to just try and put it differently. But I'm finding that incredibly difficult to do. But for the first time, I can actually hear it now, whereas previously I could not even hear that there's a negative tone to my story. So in that regard, it does help a lot. And so what I need to do is I suppose, inspire corporate South Africans to give us money so that we can show, and I'm really actually intending to pitch to companies such as Luno, Revix. They are crypto exchanges, and because we're doing the basic income and we're doing it, piloting a digital basic income, and to show that if we give this basic income digitally, we provide aspiring and ambitious South Africans the opportunity to access the digital economy, because without that basic amount of cash, they can't access the digital economy and the opportunities that come with it. So we want to provide access. And then, of course, by doing that, we will promoting their products, because they will be using exchanges, or they will be investing, learning how to invest. And we're building trust, because the question I keep on getting on the ground every time is this a scam? Is this a scam? And yeah. I think that's the value that our project can bring, is that we can show, it's not a scam. These companies are good companies. They have your best interest at heart. They can make a difference. Their target market is a younger generation, it's a new asset class. So I think they can offer a lot for all these South Africans, but many of these South Africans don't trust this sort of new digital economy, and we just need to link the two.
Yeah, I remember when we got started in 2018, and I said the word blockchain, and of course, immediately everyone thought, okay, blockchain is Bitcoin is scam, so their project is scam. So I stopped using the word blockchain altogether. I'm like, okay, if I can't convince you, I'm just gonna, talk about the product without saying what technology we're using. And that did wonders, because when I was on stage without using the word, there were immediately 2 people running up to me when I got off stage, both asking, hey, are you guys gonna use blockchain? So that's when I realized, okay, if someone thinks that, something is a scam, just stop talking about that. Don't mention it at all. And of course, what would help is, of course, what they call, social proof or testimonials of the people who are either, supporting you, or the users, or maybe even researchers, scientists, or whatever, who would, of course, say that yes, that makes sense. But that, I understand, is extremely hard to get at the very beginning of your project. It always, gets rolling, of course, afterwards. But yeah, if you have a credible source that could do a piece about the project that you're doing, about the idea that you're doing, or whatever, that I think could help. Yeah, especially if you put it up on the website, because people like to read about the experience of other people, right? So maybe.
Can I ask you one small question, because I just remembered? When you how do you decide your market? For example, if it's a younger generation or an older generation, when your product is like kind of universal. For example, I was listening first for the languages. You cannot assume that it's for 20-year-olds, because there might be a 50-year-old moving to a new country and she wants to learn a new language. So how do you determine your
Yeah, I was just actually reading homework and making comments about that, because someone made that exact mistake, and everyone does this. If you have time or possibility, watch Social Network, so the movie about Facebook, or just read how Facebook got started.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. What?
The movie that's called Social Network, about how Facebook got started.
It's on Netflix.
Or if you don't want to watch it, just Google how Facebook got started, how they came to.
I'll watch it, no problem.
And that will make you understand what needs to be done. You can't get started assuming that you're gonna make everyone happy. Yeah, it's impossible, because in the end you will not make anyone happy at all, and your goal is to make a small group of people happy, very happy, ecstatic in the very beginning, and then try to extrapolate the same result onto other groups. So Facebook, of course, got started on the campus of Harvard as an app for the students there. And now we know it as the social media that is used globally, right? So if they decided to start globally from the very beginning, they would have failed, because they would not have been able to find something that's called in startups product market fit, right? So a specific product for a specific market. Yeah. So in the modules, I think on audience and community creation, I think we're discussing the fact that you need to start small, you need to start from a niche. So even if you think that, like for the languages, right, that basically anyone can be your customer, but you have to segment them into different categories. So for the languages, for example, I think, maybe age would be interesting, right? Because you would not create the same app for a kid and for an adult. That's one, right? You have to also look if gender is going to be specific, right? So for example, for female switch, it absolutely is, but it's always funny to see how some people react to that badly. And I always say, wait, with our first startup, we're creating a software solution for engineers. No one's asking me why all the other people are excluded. And here, when I'm creating a startup game for women, people are asking, hey, why is it only for women? Well, it's the same logic, because we are targeting a specific group of women who wants to try and test out startup life and so on and so forth. So it's segmenting your potentially global audience into a smaller category. So it's not it can be gender, it can be age, it can be profession, it can be hobbies, it can be whatever. It can also be, of course, and should be in many cases, geography and affiliation with something. So for example, for one of the projects that one of the girls is doing, she wants to help mothers deal with babies and their sleep. So of course she has to figure out where those women hang out. So she wanted to start with a Facebook group where young mothers discuss different things. So that's her first, what's called a beachhead market, right? The market that she has to completely win over, so they are completely in love with her. And for that, it's a lot easier if you understand everything about that group, and ideally if that's the group that you belong to, because then it will be so much easier to penetrate it, right? Like for her, for example, she's a young mother herself, so she will be able to enter that group first of all because she belongs there, and then she will infiltrate it from inside by trying to talk about things that everyone there can relate to. Yeah, by trying to target global audience, you will not be able to find these points that will trigger people. For example, if you have a product that can potentially target both kids and adults, and you create the community and you invite everyone there, what are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about toys, and or are you going to talk about work? It's two different things. And by talking about both of them, you will alienate both groups. So, of course, you have to choose something to start with, and that's the hardest part. Which one do you choose? And for that, you're probably gonna make a mistake the first time, and that's normal. But of course, you can try to decrease the chances of that mistake by analyzing the data. So, for example, once again, for the languages, we can think that, okay, there are kids, for example, there are preschool, there's a preschool group, then there is, I don't know, elementary/middle, maybe put them together, and there is high school and university, maybe also can put them together, and whatever, and so on and so forth, right? And then you have to go online and basically Google stuff and see what's happening in the market for that specific group, for your specific proposition. So what is happening in the preschool language education for kids? And you're looking at competition, you're looking at the markets, you're looking at the trends, is it growing? And you do the same for all the other groups that you've established, and then you try to make a guess, because that's what it is. Yes, it's a hypothesis, but eventually it's a data plus your gut feeling, and you think, okay, I'm going to start with that group. It would be nice, of course, to also, if possible, to ask for advice from an expert, so someone who is in that domain, and they can give you some insight into something that you haven't taken into account. And we did this with Katchain, with our first startup. We actually talked to someone who understands that market, and they told us, if you go that way, you're gonna get that. If you go that way, you're gonna get that. So make a choice. So he gave us more information than we had. Based on that, all of that together, we made the choice. And 2 years later, we understood that we were wrong. Yay! That happens. That happens. We did everything that we could, but we could not have predicted that the pandemic would happen, and that would massively change the way manufacturing was done, and that we would not be able to approach the companies that we thought we would be able to approach, because they want to meet offline, and offline was not possible, right? So that it was a mistake, but that's why I say it happens. You try to do the best to analyze everything, but eventually you might still be wrong. And then you do what's called in startup world, you pivot. You change your direction of your company. So either you change the proposition or you change the target audience. And until a company reaches product market fit, you might need to do a lot of those changes, because if you're wrong the first time, you might be wrong the second time as well, you might be wrong the third one. And then until eventually, hopefully, you get to that product market fit, when you realize that this is exactly the product, that this is, and this exact users want it, and they're paying for it, and you see the growth. So this is the product market fit. Unfortunately, most of the startups don't make it, right? This is they fail because they haven't been able to find that combination, most probably because they ran out of money. because, of course, as you might imagine, every iteration, every change costs money. And in that respect, I love the story of SpaceX. When they had money, if I'm not mistaken, they had enough money for 3 attempts to launch the rocket. The first one failed. The second one failed. Imagine what was happening in Elon's head, right? So he has barely enough money for the third one, and that's it. And he went for the third one, and the third one was successful. So that is, of course, something that doesn't happen a lot, but to him it happened. I think primarily because he's a badass, and he was tough not only on himself but on everyone else, and he like really put everything that he could into that. I'm not gonna say if it's good or bad, because of course that kind of destroyed a lot of relationships for him. But I mean, he did it, and the third rocket went to space. So, and now
Actually, he did the same with Tesla. Huh? He was
Yeah.
this close to being bankrupt with Tesla as well.
But the rocket sounds better. I like that story.
Great, but no, it says a lot about the way he is as an entrepreneur. For him, it's do or die.
Do or die and make 10 kids on the way. The
Yeah,
guy-
he has done very well for himself.
He affords them.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that has also been something that's been quite nice for me since I've joined this sort of game, is to realize that, you know, sometimes I would look back and then I think, oh my goodness, I just wasted so much time and so much money, and isn't just this all the bad idea? But to realize that it's different, because I have gone through different sort of pitches and ideas and then figured out, okay, this doesn't work, I have to put it this way. And like you said, every time it costs money. But I do think the policy and eventually the project has evolved a lot since where it started. So it's not time wasted or money wasted.
Absolutely.
Yep.
One day I will find it. I have to look at my old computer, but I want to find the first pitch deck that I ever created for CutChain. You're gonna laugh so hard. It was just a white piece of a screen, piece of paper with black font on it. And when someone told me when we were applying for the incubator, told us, okay, can you make it pretty? Yeah, I honestly couldn't understand what the hell they wanted from me. Like, okay, it looks like it's in the center. What else do you want from me? That was what I started with, right? And then, of course, eventually it got a bit better when we learned how to use the not the PowerPoint, but the Google version of that. When everything went horribly wrong, because once you export that file and they put it on the big screen, it all goes. And so when Canva appeared, I'm like, oh my God, thank you, the God of startups, for finally giving us a tool that people like us, the non-design, the non-technical, people can do. And I'm absolutely in love with the tool. And I think that makes our life so much easier.
Is that Canva?
Canva, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's I think it's a lifesaver for starting entrepreneurs, because you don't need to spend time on learning about design, or you can even create prototypes in Canva. Yes, you have to learn a bit how to use it, but it's essentially so user-friendly. Maybe it's because it was created by a woman. I'm thinking that must be the case. Because Bubble, so the software that we use to create the platform, was created by 2 guys, and my developers are going like, oh my God, what the hell were they thinking creating that logic that doesn't make any sense? I said, well, it makes all the sense in the world to me. It was 2 developer dudes who decided to do that. That shows. You can see that in the product that they've created.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had the time, or definitely do watch the webinar from Bubble that we had, because I advise to everyone, like, even if you're not gonna consider a career in zero code or building stuff in Bubble, for non-technical founders, it's essential to try and to flip your mindset from what I call, like, story-based explanation of what you're building to a more technical explanation. So for me, with a zero technical background, talking to developers and telling them what I wanted from them, like 3 years ago, it was a disaster. Like we were speaking different language. I would say, I want that, and he'll be like, okay, what does that button gonna do? I'm like, I don't know what that button is gonna do. I don't care what that button is gonna do. I want that product to be, you know, that and that and that. And they would go like that, and I will be like, stupid developers, right? But then when you start using Bubble, it's gonna switch your way of thinking into that what's called its computational thinking, right? You will understand that there is a front end, so which is what users will see. Then there is the back end, you know, all the where all the data is gonna get stored, and then you need to connect what people are gonna see to the data that's there. How are you gonna do this? You're gonna do that with different flows, and then you get into that mode of thinking when, okay, user comes, they click that button initiates the flow of that, then the data gets sent there, and so on and so forth. It pushes you to start thinking in a different way. And once you start dealing with developers, which you will if you have a digital product, someone will have to build it, it will save you a lot of hassle, because you will be speaking the same language, because developers are not going to learn your language. Developers, they don't like to change, so you will have to change and adapt. And if you want to receive something back from them that actually resembles what you wanted, you better do the work. You better already have enough skills to create a prototype or a mock-up for them, so something that you can show to them and say, okay, this is how it works, preferably if it's already clickable, and you can actually do that in Canva. It's a lot easier to say, hey, I want you to build this for me. Here is what it is. Just do this with code now, whatever. Then for you to explain, yes, I think that the app should look like that, and the user should feel comfortable. Developer is going to like, okay, well, how does that? How can I do this? I don't know. So definitely try follow what Theo is saying in the workshop, and try to create that to-do app that he advises you. I think it's an awesome exercise. Like when I did this the first time a year ago, I think I still remember that feeling.
Sorry, I have to leave. See you next time.
Yeah. Sorry, Daisy. Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah. I think I even called you, DJ, and I said, hey, I created my first to-do app, and there's one task there to drink wine, and I just clicked and it says done. Yay.
Okay. Now,
where
with
did this webinar which you were talking about, or was it what it was?
Sorry, can you say it again, because you were both.
Where can I find this webinar, or what it was?
You, Karen, as well. You always have a problem finding the schedule. So there are several places where you can find it. I specifically do not put any links on Instagram, because I do not want the whole world to see that link, because then you will end up having spammers and all of that. So there are two ways, right? So you can go to the platform itself, into Lounge, and then scroll down to latest news. And then I think there are 3 posts there with the schedule link. It's the same link. I just made sure that there is 3 for different, but it all leads to the same link. And that link is actually a Notion file that I specifically did it on Notion, because we know that the platform is not accessible from the mobile at this moment. So Notion file is the one that you can open on the mobile. And if you want, I can, I think if I sent the link in WhatsApp again, and I can send it again, but unfortunately in WhatsApp you can't pin something to the top. Yeah. Unlike in Telegram, you can, but for Instagram, I'm like, I have to give people what they want. But so basically 2 ways, and of course, before the meeting, someone still cannot find it. Like Karen, I sent it.
I did find it in the end.
Let's not name any names, but yeah.
No, that was easier. The link to the meeting was in the schedule on the platform in the Lounge.
It's just, the recordings are the same.
Okay.
So once the meeting is done, I remove the link to the meeting, and I put the in brackets view event. And it's if you click on that, that's the recording. So It's all in the same file. It's all in the same place. It's just that the link changes from the meeting to the one of the recording.
Okay.
So it's all there.
I just have 2 questions. I need to sign an employment contract because there's a girl that's wanting to join the team. And I don't see a button where I can accept her and then that employment contract comes up.
Yeah, DJ, do you know if they fixed that part yet?
Not sure.
Yeah, I have to ask because you asked me 2 questions today. I answered one of them, and then the other one
Yes.
I said that I would give to the developers, and I'm not sure what the status of that yet. Let me check.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, I'm not going to do it now.
Yeah.
I'll probably only do it over the weekend or Monday. And then the second question was about the pitch deck. So we submit the pitch deck even though the business plan is not complete.
It's never gonna get complete.
Okay.
It's never gonna ever gonna be complete.
Okay.
Always work in
It's that
progress.
confused me a bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always a work in progress. It's always gonna be changing all the time. Every time that you get a new insight, you're gonna want to put it there. Every time you have a conversation with someone, if you think that the advice they give is good, then you're gonna put it there. You're gonna create several versions. Like I said, if you want to talk to investors, that's one pitch deck. If you're talking to users, another one. If you're talking to I don't know, influencers, the press, whatever, third one. It's always going to be a lot of versions. You're going to need the short version of the pitch. You're going to need a long one. You're going to need the one that you will use for speaking. You're going to need the one that you can send. You're going to have a lot of pitches.
Yes.
So you just need to start with one, right? And also there is no universal template. Everyone's gonna give you a different one, and it differs not only from the stage of the company, but also differs from geography. So European investors, for example, will ask for one thing, Americans will ask for a totally different thing. So you also need to know who you're going to be talking to so you can adjust. Europeans will love all the little tiny numbers, basically to the point, like I said, cash flow prognosis for the next 8 years. That's a typical European approach. Americans will just want to know how much money you're going to make in X amount of time and how you're going to approach, like how you're going to go from 0 to 10 to 100 to 1,000. So like these basic things, right? Predictions. So not costs, but the profit, the revenue, the plus, yeah, not the minus. Europeans concentrate, yeah, you might relate on the negative parts, on the negative stuff, on the costs, on what you're going to spend. Americans want to talk about, what you're gonna earn. But in general, of course, like I said, we created the template which covers the basic things that you need to have when you talk about something, right? You need, of course, to start explaining what problem you're solving, who you're solving it for, and why do people care? Like, who cares about that problem, right? Okay, because there's a lot of problems in the world that nobody cares about. And second of all, like, if someone cares, do they care enough to actually pay for that? So what's your business model, right? So to create something, it's not enough. Like, okay, who is going to benefit from it and who is going to pay for that? In many cases, these are different people. That's the distinction between the user, for example, and the customer, right? So one of the girls was put into a conundrum by me because she was creating an app for the kids and she created a proposition for the kids. I'm like, great, but the kids are not going to pay for that. It's the parents that are going to pay for that. How are you going to convince the parents to pay for that? And then she was like, okay, now I need to think about it again. Because, when your customer is not your user and vice versa, you have to create twice the work because you need to convince both with totally different things sometimes. And the bigger the organization, if you go B2B, then it gets even worse because you have the user, then you have like the department, the head of the department, the procurement, I don't know, the decision maker there. That's why B2B is like the sales process is so long. But if you want to go the investment route, it has to be B2B. because investors don't care about B2C. I heard someone say the phrase that you do B2B to become big, to grow a big company, to make money, and you do B2C to become famous. By famous, I mean to get users, to get traction, to all this. It doesn't bring money. Well, money in the sense that enough money for investors to be interested in. Maybe that's also a bit of distinction between they call a lifestyle business and like the venture capital business. Not everyone wants to go into that red race of being backed by venture capital. Some of us are just happy having a small business, employing a few, I don't know, tens or maybe 100 of people with a few million of revenue. Investors are not interested in this. This is too small for them. They want a multi-billion euro dollar valuation of the company, which means that the profits have to go through the roof, and you always have to grow. If you don't grow, they don't like you anymore.
And do you have some thoughts on the non-profit sector?
Well, yes, because Female Switch is partially non-profit. So we kind of had to, of course, a year ago when we started this whole thing, we had to learn, okay, what are we going to do with that? And it started bringing its first results. We haven't figured out all the things yet, so we still don't know how to talk to banks, for example. We still haven't figured out what it is that we can offer to them. But in the process of this thinking that it was banks that we should go to, once again, we were probably wrong because it's a different type of partner/donor that got interested in us, and that's software companies. And we started talking to them, and eventually we partnered up with a few of them. So there's a few of them that are offering also free usage of their software for you guys, for the users. And
okay.
And then there is a few that are actually put in some money into this because they realize that yes, it's getting harder and harder to procure future employees, so they want that employment funnel to become easier for them, and that of course needs to start with somewhere where they can already get people who might be interested in that and educate them. So there's a lot of like blockchain companies, software companies that want to hire women because they realize, surprise, surprise, that they don't have any, and they kind of try to look at the software department. They're like, okay, where are all the women? Well, we don't have any. So we need to hire them because someone is pushing that agenda. So some companies do not necessarily do it because they want women. It's just because, somewhere they're being told that they need to reach a certain parity, certain diversity. So of course, they're desperately looking now for ways to find those women who, besides being just women, are also qualified and also have the level of education that they need and the skills they need, and that's a big problem, big pain point for them. And that's why we realized that they liked us, because they saw, oh, awesome, great, this is like this a pool of, well, first of all, there are women already, second of all, Female Switch is doing something with educating them in the technical sector. So we are also looking, of course, in doing something with blockchain, so with software development at some points. That's how we figured out that this is the sector that is more interested in working with us and helping us grow, so that they can, of course, get the value out of us by us providing potential team members. Yeah. Well, good luck creating the pitch, and hopefully you will I wanted to say something nasty, but no, it's a good thing she left. I mean, hopefully the first version won't be too horrible, because it usually is. Like I'm thinking about mine. But you have to start from something. Oh yeah, it's already been an hour.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
Exactly.
But I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I think everybody's a bit busy, and I think everybody wants to spend more time on the game. But I mean, it's really, it's meant a lot to me, the little bit that I've done. So I think you have an amazing product.
Cool. Yeah, and despite the fact that, of course, not everyone made it to the platform, I'm still thinking that, well, it's a good thing for the team and for the rest of you, because we can spend more time with the people that actually made it. And yeah, seeing as I do get a lot of homework, so my day is pretty busy doing that. And if I had, of course, a lot more people, then I would not be able to do this, because yeah, there's only so much information you can absorb in one day. So of course, from that point of view, I believe that whatever happens for a reason, and that's great. So you might think, oh God, we wanted 300 and then we lost some of them because there was a fluke with Gmail or whatever, and then the others, something else happened. But eventually, that's a good thing that happened that way. So yeah. We are very thankful, of course, to you guys for giving us feedback, and no, this is how you learn. This is like you can create a perfect product on paper, and then you give it to the people and they misuse it, as the developers say. Yeah? Developers are like, why are they using it that way? That's not how it's meant to be. I'm like, because they're people and they're human, and this is what they do. Deal with it. So this is, of course, the best way to get first people to test your thing out as soon as possible. Yeah, of course, it's scary, because it's your baby and you're gonna give it to people, and some people might say your baby is ugly and you have to deal with it, right? But,
No, I think this baby has lots and lots and lots of potential. Honestly, I mean, since I've started my own thing, I just think, like, why has nobody ever taught you how to pitch? It's like the most critical skill, and you never learn it anywhere. It's like, because we've been raised to just get a job and earn a salary, and that doesn't work anymore. So,
that is true. Ever since the school, we are taught to become obedient, good employees.
yes, not to pitch and build your own thing, and that's what people have to do now. So
then, of course, once you start, you think of starting a company, you start hearing this word pitch that you've never heard in your life, and you think. I actually had one of my former professors from a university reaching out to me, and she said, I've heard you say the word pitch a few times in your posts, and someone just told me that I need to pitch. Can you please tell me what the hell I'm supposed to do?
yeah.
That was funny. I said, well, basically you go on stage and you promote yourself or your product, whatever, but that's it. But yeah.
Even the contract, I mean, even that contract, because when we were doing the shareholders contract, I realized when I had my first website, I didn't sign an agreement with the guy. I lost lots of money, actually, because then I didn't have access to any of the information. I couldn't change anything on the website, and I actually needed to do that.
Yeah.
So this time around, I'm saying, like, do I have access to this information? Can I be able to use this design by myself? But I still haven't signed a contract, and I should have done a contract, But yeah, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have really realized that the contracts are so important from the beginning, because you lose money.
Absolutely, and especially with freelancers or third parties, because surprise, surprise, copyright exists, and they are the copyright owners because they are the creators. So you always want to have them transfer that right to you.
Yes.
Well, it's the one thing. So you said, okay, well, I forgot to have the contract. Maybe one funny story is that when I was at the first law firm that I worked for, they decided to go ahead with some renewal in the digital age. And they did that without a contract. So actually, this is a law firm, all lawyers, and the one that had to do it forgot to sign a contract. And that gave heaps of trouble. I think they lost more than €1 million or guilders maybe that time, but they lost more than 1 million just because of that. So even lawyers, and this was a very good lawyer, but they tend to forget these things. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well,
Well,
see you with one of the next ones. Yeah, and
Yes.
yeah, tomorrow I think there's Liz with her vision and mission workshop webinar, which is especially for nonprofits might be interesting because you need to come up with your vision and your mission like that.
But that's what I can't understand, because it feels I've been working on this thing so long and I still don't have my vision and my mission sorted out. I mean, I spent the entire day writing 3 paragraphs. Explain your project. I still can't do it properly.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it keeps on changing, let me say it, or not changing, but yeah.
That's why I always joke. That's why startup founders drink wine.
Yes.
But yeah, well, let me stop recording this then before.
Okay, yes. All right. Bye. Thanks for the discussion.